Thank you for tuning in to Cop with Comic. I'm Brian Koppen. We're here with comic Joshua Pallett. Joshua Pallett, how the hell are you?
How the hell are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for coming on. You are a low-end gigolo, aren't you?
I am a low-end gigolo, born and raised.
So that is the podcast that you have with a couple other NYC comedians. Tell me about Low-End Gigolos. Why is it called that? And how, what the hell is it? It's just the three comedians riffing? I guess it's evolved over time.
Low-End Gigolos is still an evolving creature. It's two of my closest friends, Kevin Sanchez and Jonathan Kaplan, both equally hilarious people on their own. We met a couple of years ago, actually at this point, about 2.5 years ago, at an open mic in Queens at Herbert. It's the famous King of Queens bar that you see from that television show.
Really? But I
Yes.
love the fact that something actually gets done at open mics. You know, at the very least, you're in the foxhole with other suffering comedians, and you can meet some cool people.
You really can, and you know, for me personally, it was a big boost in my comedy career, because I had been focusing on stand-up for maybe a year when I met the two guys. Actually, we met a bunch of other people too, the originals. And at the time, I was looking, to pursue comedy, to pursue anything that you really love. You really need to have, a team of people you're doing it with, that it makes sense to do it with. Doing it on your own, you can do it, but it's a lot more difficult.
Good luck, motherfuckers.
It's a lot more difficult. So I had been brought to this open mic by a gentleman by the name of Adam Morris, who's now a deceased legend. Adam Morris was a full-down alcoholic who used to drink somewhere between, like, I don't know, 1.5 to 2 cases of beer per day, by best calculation.
Yeah.
And we all decided that we were going to start a podcast together. And originally it was just 4 of us together, along with our friend Colin Sick. And it was a shit show. It was just, guys trying to one-up each other with ridiculous stories and who could say the most outlandish shit. Okay. And it did stay like that for some time. And then,
that eventually exploded. That really safe formula exploded. It went shit. It went to shit at some point. My God.
It went to such a shit show. So the original name of the podcast was the Queens Mafia.
Okay.
And what happened was Adam was also a paranoid schizophrenic.
Oh my God.
And we were doing an episode one day, and he just started flipping out on us, and like more than what we were normally doing. He was like really like saying vile and vicious things. Like he was telling one of our friends, talking about his girlfriend being a big fat pig, and we were just like, what the hell is going on? So we put him on punishment for 2 weeks. We told him, you're not allowed to come back on the show for 2 weeks. And he stayed away for the first week. And then he showed up the second week more hammered than usual.
If that's possible, my lord.
If it was possible. And he was basically looking to fight us. And so we threw him out. And then we were throwing an actual show at that same bar. And he showed up again. And it almost went to fisticuffs. And that was the end of the Queens Mafia. And from there, we slowly evolved. For a little while, we were live at Yerman's, and then we became the Low-End Gigolos, which we always were from the beginning.
So, I mean, it was, you said Adam and Colin, but they're not in Low-End Gigolos, right? So you three kind of went off your own way and did Low-End Gigolos.
Well, Colin stayed with us for a little while, but Colin also didn't work out. Exactly.
I was waiting for another story. Well,
that was the story.
Basically, weapons to a recording, and so now he's gone too.
Yeah, Colin's gone, and he hates me. I don't know. He blocked me on Facebook.
Oh no.
I don't know. I make a lot of enemies in this world.
I can't wait to see how we become enemies by the end of this 20 minutes.
I already can't stand you, and I'm sure you feel the same. But
I love it. We think it's everybody but Joshua Pallett, but no, I think it's Joshua Pallett during the episode.
Yeah, it's everybody else. It's not me.
And so when you started it, you were like, okay, here's three guys that we can really build a podcast on because they're stable. We all get along really well. We all riff really well together. And, kind of how has the topics or the format changed over time?
Well, for about a 3 or 4 month period, we became a school for animals. So, well, Jonathan, the problem with Low End Gigolos is we don't really have a specific theme to our show. And John's a very businessy, savvy comedy guy. And he said, if we're going to market, we have to, focus on something.
Okay.
So all of a sudden, one day we were riffing and we started talking about animals and we started grading animals on the show. And the show became a show of grading animals. And
how the fuck do you grade an animal, first of all?
How do you not grade an animal?
And this you're a vegan, and so
yes.
I want to know, like, if I'm not a vegan, I mean, do you bring up like cow, and then we discuss the merits of the cow just generally? Well, he's white and black, and he has spots, and there's a male cow, a bull, so you could ride bulls or whatever the hell it is. Like, do you guys just discuss the merits of each respective animal, regardless of whether or not regardless of how they taste? So I suppose, one point in the cow's favor is that you can eat the cow, if you're not a vegan. So what goes into creating a fucking animal, and how did that work? Did you guys just throw out the name of a rando animal?
So, it's not a specific thing. There are points that you can get. Like, for instance, you said that a cow would give you plus a point for the way it tastes. I take away a point because
sure.
Why are you making yourself so delicious? Like, really a real survival trait. Like, certain plants make themselves taste bitter, right? If you were a smart animal, you would have evolved into a disgusting hamburger. Now you're delicious, and I have to pay companies to simulate you. Sorry.
Oh yeah, and until they evolved to have mad cow. I mean, those dicks were not good survivors, were they?
Well, mad cow is zombieism because that's what it was. They were feeding them their own dead. You know that, right?
Yeah, I don't really know how it evolved, but too, I can't even believe. I don't know why this is so fucking funny, but congratulations on that fucking idea. Like, if you're the business savvy guy, was like, okay, it needs a hook, and you guys came up with grading fucking animals. That is hilarious. And like, how long did it stay that kind of? It's hilarious, but I imagine it's a little bit limiting because how long could I listen to that? You're so funny where maybe it could last a while, but like, did it ever broaden beyond that?
I like doing it. I like just doing comedy in general. Yeah. Kevin Sanchez hated it. He thought it was the corniest idea in the world. I mean, because, John would show up with like Xerox copies of like weird animals that he like photocopied out of a book from the 70s.
Okay.
And Kevin hated it. So it lasted on the Low End Gigolos. We graded animals maybe 3-4 months until Kevin completely just shit on it and told us we shouldn't do it anymore. But you'll be happy to know if you go to Instagram, Grading Animals, Mr. Jonathan Kaplan, the genius himself, has ran with the baton, and he grades animals every week, and it's fucking hilarious. It's genius. He has a Patreon. You should subscribe to it. It's really
actually not only I think his Jonathan K. Y'all, but then he has a grading animals. Like, if you go to Instagram, grading animals, it's grading animals with J Caps, who's Jonathan Kaplan, and almost 6,000 fucking followers. He took this idea and ran with it.
Yes, and Kevin still hates it.
Kevin still hates it. And then have you guested on that show then? I mean, you were the show for a while.
We were, we were slated to guest on it, but I don't know. The quarantine happened, and just.
My Lord, 3, 4, some of these videos, 4,000 hits on these fucking videos on IGTV. It's like, my Lord, he had a specific idea and he went with it. I'm proud of him. That's amazing. But then so then he's still doing Low End Gigolos though. And I guess my question is, how were you guys called Low End Gigolos while you were still grading animals? Like, how did that fit together? And maybe that was a point that Kevin said. That was a point that Kevin said.
I think it was the school that we were working in. So we were all teachers in the Low End Gigolo school. And these were animals. And we all had our own specific opinions on them, on whether they were dicks or not.
But I like that there's a school. Like, I saw that on the website, there being a school and you grade animals. I get that. But, gigolos are what, male prostitutes? Like, how did that have to do with animals?
That is very offensive. Okay? and we're not prostitutes. Sex is not guaranteed. It can happen if we both agree upon it.
But what did that have to do with animals, though? It had very little to do with animals unless you're having sex with animals.
Well, that's why, Kevin and I left. Jonathan started fucking the animals, and I'm a vegan. I'm against that. So
yeah, dude, I love that. Oh my gosh, so funny. And so Low End Gigolos, it no longer grades animals. And so what the fuck does it talk about now? Whatever comes up?
Well, we've been on hiatus for a couple of weeks. It basically, because it became a Zoom podcast, it lost some of its, magic, because we were meeting up in person every week for a few hours and recording 2 episodes. And, if you watch the stuff that we put onto YouTube in the last, 4 months, it's depressing to me, to be honest with you. It's depressing. It's basically like it's like a document. It's basically like somebody found, what was that movie, The Blair Witch Project?
Yeah.
It's like in the future, somebody found like video recordings of people stuck in the middle of the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Because, we're just talking about losing our jobs and fucking being stuck in the house and the fear and the this and the that. So, typical whiny crybaby comedian stuff.
And you can't go out and live your life and then talk about that. But back in the day, after grading animals, but before the pandemic, what kind of topics were you guys talking about? Whatever came to mind?
Well, for the first year, probably into Low End Gigolos, a lot of it had to do with Kevin and I's sex life.
Okay.
And Jonathan's lack of sex life.
So you guys were getting laid and Jonathan wasn't, and you guys talked about it.
We actually, he'll probably get mad at me for talking about this, but we berated him because he's been in a long-term relationship with a woman for about, I think, 8 or 9 years, something like that.
Okay.
And John's a very asexual dude, but he does every now and then have sex, and he would come and tell us how great it was and how he forgot. Thanks us for reminding him. And then Kevin and I came to find out, this is only a few months ago, that John's been having condom sex with his girlfriend for the last 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
Me and Kevin are highly against condoms. I mean, if you're in a dedicated relationship, we think that's the most disgusting thing in the world you can do.
Why? Because you think the pill should be able to, she should have the pill and the IED and all that bullshit.
Well, because we're human beings, and it just, I don't know. For me personally, maybe it's because I'm Jewish and they took away, half of my penis skin and the sensitivity's been lost. Condom sex just doesn't do it for me. I'd rather be home taking care of myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And so he just kind of revealed this and you guys gave him the shit for it.
Yeah, we gave him the shit for it. And like a true champion and a real man's man, he went and manned up, and he had sex with his girlfriend without a condom for the first time in 7 years.
And she got pregnant.
And now she's pregnant and she's left him, and we ruined his life. But he's got grading animals, so.
I see Leonardo Joni on your Instagram channel. Are you guys doing stuff with her?
Oh yeah, Leonardo's a really good friend of ours. She is hilarious. I love her.
Yeah. You did a Trump hates women thing on there. You did a breaking news thing. Is that you? It's you, and I think that might be you. But yeah, it says breaking news: Trump hates women. CNN.
Yes, it's me, Kevin, and Leonardo making fun of the very liberal news media. But then we very quickly make fun of the very right leaning media, because we don't take political affiliation. We think everybody's political views are stupid.
Yes. Yeah, I follow, of course, Leonardo's hilarious and she's on the show. But yeah, I follow her Twitter feed and she can be a little right wing. But yeah, I agree. There's totally ridiculous stuff on both.
Leonardo came on to Low End Gigolos.
Okay.
Kevin had met her at a show, and she came on to Low End Gigolos. And when the first time we had met her, she was a ready to die for Bernie Sanders supporter.
Really? What happened?
She swallowed a red pill, and honestly, it literally happened overnight. She called me one day, and she had spent 12 or 18 hours falling down a rabbit hole.
Really? Yeah. Knows out like a convert. I mean, she's funny all the time, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, occasionally I'll get the right wing opinion, and I think it's fairly strident. And you were on the Stoner Morning Show too with Sean Wickens, or no?
I was, yes. I did. They had a marathon actually recently that I jumped on with Kevin.
And do you have to be stoned to go on that show?
You don't have to, but I
But I did. Well, see, low end gigolos makes a lot more sense if you're talking about a sex life, you know?
right.
Yeah, but then that one guy though is not boning as much as he should be, so he's fucking getting the brunt of it. Is Jonathan like the straight man then when you guys were talking about sex, or you just kind of you guys are taking the piss that he's not having as much sex as you guys are?
He's the not having sex man. I don't know if it's the straight man.
Yeah.
Jonathan.
You're like, well, not having sex doesn't necessarily mean you're straight, but we'll call him the straight man. That's funny.
So Jonathan is a very accomplished artist, and he's not like, he's the kind of guy like he taught himself how to play like the piccolo, and like he does like art courses, and he's brilliant, and I've told him that 100 times. But part of the reason of his brilliance is he just doesn't really care about sex and busting nuts.
Dude, I'm the same way. So it's like me and Jonathan, we fucking get along, dude.
Well, yeah, I can tell, but Kevin and I are handicapped by our penises, and they're constantly telling us, "Don't pay attention to art, go pay attention to ass." And we would have been able to accomplish much more had we spent less time pursuing sex.
But dude, I love that, and I love that it's sex oriented because your dad, he was big in the sex game, wasn't he? And the fact that I called you a gigolo, I mean, you took offense to that. You were like, sex is not guaranteed. But how would your dad answer that question?
Well, he would say the same thing because we're trying to keep ourselves from getting arrested.
Yeah, so he was a big man in the strip club industry, wasn't he?
Yeah, my dad owned a chain of strip clubs in New York City, East Coast, New Jersey.
Yeah. It's just like, is there somebody who owns one, or is it just kind of a license to print money so that a strip club owner is always a strip club chain owner?
Well, without getting a hit put on my head, the money's already been somewhere else.
Okay.
Yeah, there's owners, But my father was the original. I was a kid. He used to own discotheques. So when I was really young, he was in the nightclub business. I have recollections of. He used to hang out with Shaka Khan. I remember hanging out with Shaka Khan. I remember.
Oh shit.
He had Michael Jackson's sister. She had the very least known one. She had a hit called Centipede.
Okay.
And Chuck Scarborough, the news reporter from New York, I remember he was interviewing her in my dad's nightclub, and they put me on her lap, and it's a nightclub. It's dark, and all of a sudden they turned the camera lights on, and I was maybe 5 years old. I was completely blinded by it, so I couldn't stay on her lap. It was like painful for me. And in hindsight, I blew my chance. If Michael would have seen that, I would have been invited over to Neverland.
You could have blown your you blew your load with Michael too. You didn't only just blow your chance, man. You could have blown your load with Mike.
Exactly, and he could have blown his, and I could have had a horrible. Worse than I already had, and that's awful to say. Now I feel terrible.
It totally explains why you're just the way you are. I mean, you're a good-looking cat. You're well-spoken, and you have a podcast, a successful podcast about sex, pretty much, don't you?
Yeah. I guess I am doing pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, like, how could it have turned out differently? You have a dad who was in the strip club game, and it was a discotheque where Shaka Khan was fucking there. What else are you going to turn out to be? A badass motherfucker, right?
Yeah, well, it really worked out great, except for when it came to creating a family with my child's mother.
Oh yeah. So how's that? You're co-parenting an 8-year-old, I think.
He's going to be 8 in January. Yes, my buddy Alexander.
Okay, and so how does that jive with the whole going out and get laid constantly without condoms? Did that attitude kind of was that attitude fueling the fact that you have an 8-year-old right now? Because 8 years ago you were anti-condom.
When I met my ex, I was at least 4 times crazier than I am now, and I'm a pretty crazy person still. Okay. And she was totally cool with it. And she, if she ever hears this, she'll yell and say it's not true. But she was a couple of years older than me, and she really wanted to have a kid. Okay. And I just wanted to have drinks and go out and party and have fun. And she was cool, and she hung around me, and she kept me liquored up. And about a year into doing that, we got knocked up.
Good. I mean, it sounds like the 8-year-old is a badass motherfucker too. Are you going to sit him on Shaka Khan's lap?
He is the smartest, funniest little kid. I know every parent says that, but if you look at my Instagram, you'll see He's really cute. I put him in some videos. He's really sharp. He's
Good.
really handsome. And I thank God every day that he's like that, because I couldn't imagine, like, what if I had like an ugly, not funny kid?
Who would I have put in my videos?
I would have to use somebody else's kid. But he, thankfully he's more than perfect. And, again, you're right. I had the gigolo mind frame, and it did not work out. I was with my ex for 7 years, and we split up about 4 or 5 years ago. Thankfully, we're on friendly terms now. But
Good.
Having a child with somebody of my background, philosophy, and brain pattern doesn't always work out that well.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it worked out pretty well. Now you got a cute kid for your Instagram content.
I agree. And, he lives with her most of the time. I get him a couple days a week, so he's not overly exposed to the lunacy. I can play, I can be good for a couple days a week. I can be a smart, kind father, and we have a great relationship. I love him to death. So,
dude, that's fucking cool, man. And dude, you're a great follow on this Instagram thing. I see this fucking Low End Gigolos merch is fantastic.
Yes, I love it too, man. I can't wait to put my Low End Gigolo sweatshirt back on for the season.
Yeah, dude. I love. There's a picture of you or something like that with a hoodie that says Low End Gigolos on it, which is pimp. And then you have a black bodega bag that says "Thank you" as a mask, and that's fucking that's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
That was me. That's me and
Yes.
Kevin going to a show the night before they officially closed everything down.
Wow.
If you look at the date, so that evening, that was when like every news channel was 24 hours. We have a pandemic. We have a pandemic. And me, Kevin, and our good buddy Eric Miller, who Kevin and Eric have been running a successful show in the city for years at Zona Tribeca.
Okay.
We had a show planned that evening, and we were like, do we call it? Do we not? Do we come? And me and Kevin were like, bro, I have a feeling everything's gonna get closed the fuck down tomorrow. So if this is our last chance to be out, do a show, let's fucking do it, or we're gonna regret it. And we did it, and the show was amazing. It was hilarious. Except
super spreader event.
And yeah, well, then Kevin at the end of his like 20-minute set puts a joint in his mouth, and this isn't a restaurant, okay? And he starts lighting up a joint on stage, and Kevin has a fucking shit fit. He's like, who does he think he is? He thinks he's fucking Dave Chappelle. It was so awesome and memorable. But I really do. I thank God that we were able to do that show, because it's been painful not to be able to do indoor shows. We do outdoor shows now, and it's just not the same thing. Your audience is like 30 feet away from you. It's hard to get people to laugh. When you put them in a small room, it becomes contagious. If you throw them in a park and they're fucking socially distanced, it's awful. It's awful. So tonight I'm going to watch our friend Leonardo. She's roast battling.
Yes, I just talked with Matt Marion about that. It's his comedy fight club or whatever.
Yeah, I did that a couple of weeks ago also.
And how'd you do? You lost?
I lost, yes. It was bullshit. I won that shit, but
He said something about like it takes empathy to make dark shit funny. So I just think you're a psychopath who has no empathy.
Oh. I think I have too much empathy. I am the most overly sensitive person you'll ever meet. The old exterior brass tough guy. I'm just I'm a crying hippie who's sitting in the corner, basically.
That is, dude, he's just a walking contradiction. He looks like such a badass. You look like the Terminator getting onto this train.
Thank you.
You have this fucking picture, man, with your fucking medallion, but he's a soft yet hard. And we follow him everywhere. He's Joshua Pallet and lowendgigolos.com, right? When's the next episode drop? It sounds like you're on hiatus for a second, but when can we expect new content?
We're trying to get John to come back and do a live one with us. So it'll probably be in the next couple of weeks or so, but you'll expect some, stuff on my page, because we're making videos. I have a new team that I'm making videos with. So we make stuff with Leonardo. We make stuff with my friend Dylan McGraw and DC Williams and Alex. I forgot what the fuck his last name. So me, him, and Kevin and the other two, we're creating some really funny stuff. I don't know if you saw I did the Revel Scooters CEO. Did you see that video?
Oh yeah, not yet. I'm looking at your Instagram now, though.
Yeah,
what'd you do with Rebel Scooters? Do you guys take a scooter around?
we were gonna do a commercial. This was right after they banned Revel scooters. It was gonna be a message from the CEO, and it was just gonna be, you know, like facetious and stupid. And I
Yes.
was getting ready to do it with the guys, and I slicked my hair back, and they were like, "Oh, why don't you do it as like your Italian character that you do?"
Yeah.
So I
Dude,
do it
yeah,
as
you
like,
could, yeah, you could do that character really well, man. You guys
yeah,
better use my fucking Rebel scooters, right?
yeah. It got tweeted out a lot of places, so I think it's
Yeah.
pretty. We're gonna do another one of those in a couple of days, also. So.
Well, dude, I can't fucking wait. And yeah, I follow you here. You're on Instagram at Low End Gigolos as well. So Joshua Pallett, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Brian. It's been awesome to be on.